I'm Leonardo Mazzone. I'm a data scientist at the Department for Business and Trade. And a few years ago, I was working on a machine learning algorithm to predict the export propensity of different types of businesses. And that required mapping financial and sector data to export data, which came from a different data source, naturally without a common identifier. And I quickly realized that the single best way that I could improve the performance of my model was to improve the underlying data matching. So I went around the department to find out if anyone had a better solution to this problem than me. And I realized that lots of different teams across the department, every single directorate, so we're talking about analysis, policy, developers, had all sorts of disparate solutions to this. So that resulted in lots of duplication of effort on data matching, inconsistency, lack of convergence towards best practices, etc. So more recently, me and a small team decided to try and tackle this problem. And we quickly came across Splink, which is, many of you might know this, it's a product by the Minister of Justice that they use for linking people data as they move through the justice system. And it's very popular in government, I think for three reasons. First of all, it is very good, so well architected and state-of-the-art model. Secondly, it's open source, so the code is easy to access, but also well documented. And finally, it is general. So the Ministry of Justice did not encode their preferences or settings. They just kind of gifted us with a very general way of expressing rules on how to compare probabilistically pairs of records. And these rules work at the level of pairs within a single data set if you're deduplicating, or between pairs of data sets if you're linking. So we wanted to use Splink, and we realized, unfortunately, that there isn't an obvious way to scale it to many more than 2 data sets. So one thing that you can do is you can have a linker for every possible pair of data you want to link. So in an example where you have 10 data sources, that would give you 45 linkers, which is quite a lot if you need to run them every day, perhaps, or maintain them and evaluate on an ongoing basis. So we started building our own framework around Splink to make it really simple for us to use Splink. And we thought about all the different ways that you can combine linkers. One such way is sort of like a divide and conquer approach, or you can have incremental steps where at each step you're adding in an extra data source. In this example, again, thinking about the 10 data sources, you would have 9 linkers instead of 45, which is much more manageable. So we call this framework Matchbox. And if Splink gives you a way of expressing your own kind of custom rule for comparing pairs of records and pairs of data sets, Matchbox operates at a higher level, and it's a way of expressing ways of composing linkers and dedupers and to make multiple data sources really easy to interrogate in a joined-up fashion. And it also provides a database where you can store in a central location the result of running your matching models. As we were building this, we were aware that some of the data sources you might want to join could be sensitive, so we built this in such a way that the Matchbox database actually is never sent any of the real data. It just stores references to the data, so it knows how to stitch together data sets but not what their content is. And for that reason, we need a client in the middle, which could be a user like an analyst or a data pipeline, and they run a Python library that we published. And they need to have separately access to the Matchbox database and the data sets that they might or might not have access to for running queries and for running matching models. So having a standard way of defining whole data matching pipelines, as well as a single location for storing the results, means that we can bring many people with us on this journey to kind of collaborate to build a shared ecosystem of matched data. And all these teams and individuals have an interest in making sure that the results are good. So Matchbox also, we've implemented within it an interface for sampling matching results, prioritizing the ones that are most uncertain, and showing them to users, gathering their feedback, and forming validation data, which we can then use for assigning performance scores to our models, which essentially turns this into a problem that is measurable and iterative. In other words, we can evolve our models on an ongoing basis with everyone sort of benefiting from that. We have deployed Matchbox in dbt. We have a first pipeline linking 7 data sets, and we're just in the process of onboarding the first users and dashboards who will be using this for measuring the impact of our export support services and for joining up the regional and central business support offer. So I've spent most of today and we've spent most of the last few months on this, working on the technology. We'd love maybe to return in a year and talk about the value that this has brought for DBT. But we suspect that many other organizations outside DBT could be much more advanced than us in terms of the thinking on specific rules for matching business data. The nice thing is that it is very simple within Matchbox to create new methodologies and systematically compare them against our baseline and swap old models and new models in a way that is essentially invisible to users. So I didn't mention that we have a way that essentially runs a Matchbox pipeline and produces a lookup, which is the thing that supports the analyst and the dashboard that we enable. And it is essentially a very simple SQL table mapping between different kinds of business identifiers. So as a closing remark, I mentioned open source as one of the factors leading to Splink success. It is also a very core principle to us. We want to work transparently in the public interest, making sure that the result of our hard work is easy to reuse. And a man can dream. Maybe one day we'll get community contributions. But anyway, it's hard work. It means maintaining up-to-date documentation. If you're interested in this, check it out, and please keep us honest if it is not quite as accessible as we wish it to be. Similarly, we need to make sure that we have a robust security pipeline to ensure we don't accidentally leak passwords to the public or anything like that. And we need to, again, make this general. So another way in which that needs to happen is we need to separate the software from the infrastructure on which we deploy it at DBT specifically, which takes discipline, but also means that hopefully in the long term it will benefit us because we're not marrying it to kind of our current cloud provider or anything like that. So if you find any of that interesting, please check out the links. There is also an email at the bottom. It will go to me and to Will Langdale, who came up with most of the good ideas that went into Matchbox. He's also in the room tonight if you're here in person. So yeah, let's connect. Thanks very much for having me.